Welcome to 45th Fu. My name is Oscar, and this is Mimi.
I'm a little dizzy now. We are here every Tuesday to give you fitness tips and advice so that you can continue doing Kung Fu, Tai Chi, or whatever you choose well into your 40s and up.
Excellent. And we have more questions. Thank you so much for asking questions.
Yay, questions.
We are going to attempt to answer them. So one of the questions we got was, what are ways to stay physically active in the office?
So this is the office.
Pretty cool. A virtual office. We answered something similar to this before, where we talked about the key is not to stay in the same position for long periods of time. That includes you don't want to be sitting for a long period of time, but you also don't want to be just standing for a long period of time. It's just that kind of being stagnant.
Yeah, so some people say, oh, I have a standing desk, but then my back hurts. And it's like, well, you also can't stand in one position. So even in your chair, you can be in different positions and continuously moving your position. So sometimes you might feel like in your particular office, maybe it doesn't look right to be up and down the whole time. But even in the chair, I think you guys can vary that up. But, you know, Oscar always says, the best position is the next position. So
stolen by someone.
Oscar does a lot of one-legged stuff. Sometimes he'll take his chair and do, you know, this number and do all these sort of stretches.
Yeah, so
you're always moving around.
So you did something kind of, which I wanted to point out, which is you kind of sat forward. So when we are sitting in a chair all the way back, it's very hard to support our upper body that way. Basically everything is just kind of sagging this way because you're sitting on your butt. But if you move forward and get your knees closer to 90 degrees and actually get your sit bones, your butt bones, and if you start you can actually probably even place your hands under your cheeks and just shift side to side and feel the butt bone and just kind of feel like where that is.
That won't look awkward at all in the office.
Totally not look awkward. Practice it at home and then try it at the office. But it will allow you then to have a support to then put everything else on top of, and you can make sure that you have your center like a cylinder on top of the sit bones, and then everything else on top kind of stacked, right? So your ear lined up with your shoulder lined up with your hip, and then if you can get into this 90-degree angle, you'll be able to support yourself a little bit more that way as well. And so that's a really big one for when you're sitting. The other thing is, even while you're in that position, if you're doing some imaginary typing, you can start doing things like that, like while you're reading, just do any type of movement. We've done so much talking on joint mobility. This is the time now where to put any of those things into practice. Any part of the joint that you can move while being stationary is going to help. The key is just not sitting completely still, because you're just putting positive inputs into the joints. So that is one way to start adding activity. It doesn't have to be just getting up and doing push-ups. I mean, great, you can definitely do that.
Yeah, you can totally do that if that's your office culture. Also, get up. That is the point. So set a timer for 5-10 minutes, whatever it is. Get up, go get a drink of water, because you need to stay hydrated as well. So just keep moving. I am totally guilty, you know, especially if I'm working on a super project, of just hyper focusing and I don't set the timer, and then it's like 7 hours later. So set a timer, something obnoxious to go off to remind you to get up and move and switch positions. Yeah,
there's a technique called the Pomodoro Technique, and it is 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of rest. They have apps on your phone that you can get, and that's what I use. Is I set a timer, it's 25 minutes of work. Sometimes I feel like I'm just kind of getting into it, but I try to follow it when it beeps to do something. Whether if it's not moving away from the project, it's at least standing up and doing something else. But the studies on this have shown that you stepping away from something every 25 minutes or so allows you then to be fresh to continue tackling on what you're doing, and you will actually get more stuff done if you take these little 5-minute breaks.
Yeah, your productivity is supposed to go up. Your
productivity will go up. I say this, but I don't always follow it because sometimes you are really getting into something and an hour will go by. But to Mimi's point is, you want to just add movement throughout the day in any way that you can. There's a student who was complaining about hip issues, and I was telling him, well, you got to move throughout the day. And he says on his standing desk, he's just like moving his hip around and exploring different options. And he's like, oh, I feel a lot better. And it's just because he was standing for a long period of time, was putting stress without moving. So just make sure you add healthy movement throughout the day.
And the second question is also kind of related.
was something about neck tension and how to relieve that. Again, I am not a doctor. Your pathology of whatever's going on there could be beyond what my scope is. However, this does come down to the stress that you're putting on the joints. So if you move your head forward, every inch forward is about 10 pounds more of stress that you're putting on the neck and upper tract, all these muscles up here. And so a lot of the times, because we're sitting at a desk or standing and we're looking at something or looking at our phones, we're putting stress and you're putting forward weight, which puts more stress up here. So some ways to do that is to make sure that your computer or laptop is set up at eye level, whether you're standing or sitting. And the other thing is, because we spend so much time on our phones, is instead of looking here, get into the habit of looking here. It is not only better for you as far as your position, but it's also more tactical. You can be more aware of your situation, right? And also you have your hands free. It's basically from your fighting stance, place your hands here, and that's how you should be looking at your phone. You will look cooler and it will be better for you.
All right. Got a quick one for you today. Those nice 2 quick answers, but let us know how that works for you. And again, I think for either of the questions, don't forget to breathe. We talk a lot about breathing, so that'll be good. That actually is movement, even though you're not doing huge movements. If you're
working one of the most important muscles.
You are actually still working. And I think whenever I get a little bit stressed, when I have all this going on and the headaches and all the things you want to avoid, start with the breath, and then you'll also have a little more consciousness of where you're really feeling.
That is huge. I would say number one, focus on your breath. Look back at it. We did a 3-part series.
Yeah, we start with the crocodile, went all the way up.
Decompression breathing. So breathing is more important, and then healthy movement.
All right.
Perfect.
Thanks for joining us. We see you every Tuesday for 40 Fit Food. Peace out.